Lesson C4, Live Drawings, Topic 3, Adding Components. The learning objectives for this topic are to be able to add components to a live drawing. We're going to look at time series and data tables, assets, links, charts, and manual data entry components. The first thing we're going to look at is time series components, but I'm not going to spend long on this because we have spent quite a long time in the previous lesson. I'm just going to do one example and then we're going to move on to the other things, that's assets and links and manual components, because they're more interesting. So to add a component, we first go add, and then you have the option to configure or add from template. For the time series KPIs, you can add them from template or configure them directly. We'll just configure this one directly. It's a data tag, and here's one I've added to my basket already. So I'm just going to drag this in, and I'm going to display a level gauge. 0 to 100% is fine. The color that we're going to make it, will make it yellow, and we're going to add an additional trend. I'm just going to use a limit of 80, and it's going to be a reference value line. I'm going to make it red, and then I need a height. Let's just say 150 for now and see how that looks. So there's my level gauge. Bit big, so maybe I'll edit that down and make it 75. There we are. So now I can place my level gauge on this vessel. That's good. Done there. If I take it out of edit mode, there we are. Now it's interactive, so I'll save that. And it's just the same for any other time series KPI that we've looked at before. You add it in exactly the same way. To add an asset to a live drawing, we do the same as we did before for time series. We go to add and configure, but this time we choose asset from the drop down. And then we can search for that asset. Here I've already searched for the HP separator. We'll add that. Add. We've got now the title, and we've got whether it's centrally aligned, we've got the color and the text size. Save. So now we have the label, and when we click it, it brings up the common menu. So an asset gives you access to all the related information in the data model. Properties, measurements, documents, alerts, all the things that we saw previously when we looked at this. We'll save that. And that's how you add an asset. Now there's a few smart things that you can do with this. Here it's black, you can read it and it's visible, and I could place this anywhere. But if I already had text on my drawing that I didn't want to overlay, one of the things I can do is to change the color to either be white, so it appears invisible against a white background, or I could even change it to be transparent if I wanted to. And that way you can place effectively a hotspot over some background text. So now, although you can't see it, if I hover my mouse over it, I can see the cursor change to a hand, and I can click it and bring it up. So that's a few handy tips with adding assets and how you can actually make them like hotspots on a drawing. Now let's look at adding text and links to a drawing. So same as before, we're going to add a new component, and this time we're going to select text. Now we can give it a title. I'm going to call this a link for the sake of it. And if I just do nothing else and save that, then I get a component which just has some text on it. So that might be handy in itself if you need to add a label to something. But we can add a hyperlink to this as well if we like, because we have the option here to change it to a link. When I do that, I get the option to add a URL. So I'm going to add one from my drop down. I'm just going to use the Eigen website. And now if I save that and edit it, when I click this, I'll get taken to the website. So this can be an external site, but it also could be the URL of other content. So you can effectively build a navigation from your drawings to the next drawing in the series. I'll just save that and then show you what happens when we click it. And it's taken us to the Eigen website.
It's also possible to add a chart as an overlay on an image.
Now, the KPI already has spark lines, but where these are not suitable, you can add a chart object. So here we're going to pick chart from the drop down, and now we get the option to set height and width, and these are the only configurations you can do on an edit mode. So I'm going to set this to be, say, 250 wide by 150 high for now. And there's our object, and we'll place that on the page there. Now, whilst this is in edit mode, I can't edit the chart because what I'm doing is while the KPI itself is in edit mode, I'm placing where the chart frame goes. When I take this out of edit mode, I can no longer move the chart, but I can interact with it like a normal chart. So I can add tags to it, and I configure it very much as if I was just configuring a normal chart. And I can put it in seamless mode. So if we just edit this a moment, this means that you can place it over other components like this. So it may be that you want to use it as a more interactive sparkline, because one of the nice things about the chart is you get the scooter bars. But you configure this exactly the same as you would a normal chart once the KPI is out of edit mode. All the controls are still available.
The final thing we'll look at adding to a live drawing is a manual entry component.
Same as before, we'll add an object and we'll configure it, and this time we're going to pick component. Now here, the only option is the manual data entry component in most instances of Ingenuity. When we add this to the page, it will come in quite big. Well, on my screen it will be, because I've got it full screen. And remember, this component, the whole KPI, will scale with screen size. Just like the chart component, the manual data entry component, when the KPI is in edit mode, all you're placing is the frame. When we take it out of edit mode, now we can put the component itself in edit mode and configure it just like we did previously. Now, one thing I would say with using the manual entry component on a diagram is to bear in mind the screen size that it's going to be used at. It's often better to use manual entry components in a separate KPI that is not overlaid on top of a graphic, because of the resizing issue. It will behave probably better outside of a freely placed graphic overlay. But nonetheless, it's possible to do, and so you can add manual entry components onto live drawings if you need people to be able to input data into them.
Finally, I've got a couple of tips and tricks to offer here if you're making a live drawing and have several instances of a similar component.
At the bottom left of each component there's a plus sign. At the bottom right there's the X to remove that component. If you need to add another component that's similar to this, if you click the plus sign, it will duplicate it. And that gives you a starting point to then go in and edit. Maybe you just need to edit the tag source in it. In the Power User learning pathway, we'll show you more tips and tricks for how to copy KPIs from other KPIs, and how to use the configuration to copy an entire KPI across.